boyfriend was attacked by an unleashed, aggressive dog. I risked my life to protect him. My right hand nearly crippled. The aggressive dog was beaten to death with sticks. Its owner, grief-stricken, committed suicide. Upon hearing news of her death, my boyfriend said in disgust, a lunatic who'd risked his life for animals. Later, my boyfriend became a world-renowned painter and married me at the end of our honeymoon. He lured me to the suburbs and locked me in a dog kennel full of fierce hounds, watching me being torn apart by the rabid dogs. He sneered.
How does it feel to be bitten to death by
the dog you once abused? I realized too late that the girl who committed suicide for her beloved dog was his unrequited first love. He hated me for causing her death and married me only to plot revenge. Heartbroken, I returned to the moment when he was knocked down by the dog. This time it was his turn to use one hand in exchange for his first love, a dog's life. He loved her so much. He must have found it sweet to endure when the pitch-black dog, as tall as a person, clamped its jaws around my ankle. I couldn't even scream. My fingers gripping the wire mesh tightly were cut open. The mad dog, catching the scent of blood, grew even more frenzied, tearing at my flesh. Right now, even begging for death has become a luxury. I swed and stood outside the barbed wire, watching coldly as I struggled, then stepped on my curled fingers.
Sue Yuning, how does it feel to be bitten to
death by the dogs you once tortured and killed? With every additional word he spoke, the pressure on my fingers increased until the bones were crushed and bent, never to move again. You should have thought of this day when you killed Hui Qin back then. The necklace around his chest swayed, containing a photo of Lu Hui Qin in his memory. The life of his first love, who died young, was far more important than mine. His newlywed wife propping myself up with my arm. I spat a mouthful of blood at him fiercely. A splash of red instantly stained his shoe, and seeing his ugly expression, I curled my lips. Better than a coward hiding behind a woman. You heartless beast, even if I die. I raised the iron nail clenched in my left hand and drove it fiercely into Schweden's
foot.
I'll make sure you stink too.
A
chunk of flesh was torn from my back by the mad dog, the pain overwhelming my senses as blood loss gradually clouded my mind. I heard Schweden's heart-wrenching roar. Do you really think there's still anyone willing to stand up for you? The dog's barks pierced through my eardrums. The drooling Rottweiler snarled and lunged at Shu Yannon like a cannonball.
Schwed.
Yannon let out a blood-curdling scream. His face drained of color as he clung desperately to my arm, crying, Yun Ning, save me, trembling all over. He frantically tried to hide behind me. My arm ached from the grip, and I lowered my eyelids to hide the emotions in my eyes. I had actually gone back to today, when Xue Jian locked me in the dog kennel, and the fierce dogs tore at my flesh. I had thought countless times, if only I could return to this moment. The first thing to do is to kick the shameless. In great a way, I hooked my leg around Xue Dianan's ankle and abruptly yanked my arm back. Caught off guard, he fell to the ground, his shirt instantly torn apart by Runaway's claws. As he struggled to crawl backward, I stomped on his hand, eliciting a piercing, agonized scream. I pretended to stumble back 2 steps in panic, crying out in a trembling voice, Jen Nan, look out. The dark figure lunged forward and shed. Yannon instinctively raised his arm to block, only for it to be instantly torn open, flesh mangled by the bite. Shed. Yannon's arm was drenched in blood, the pain so intense that tears and snot streamed down his face. Ning, save me. Help.
Ah.
The more Schwedyanen struggled, the harder the Rottweiler bit down, blood quickly soaking through his
Clothes.
Jen, and I've called for help. Hold on a little longer. Only when he was nearly unconscious from the pain did I finally arrive at the scene with fully armed security personnel. I raised the iron rod as if to swing it at the dog's back just as a woman suddenly rushed out from the side, frantically throwing herself at the Rottweiler and pleading in distress. Don't hit it, we'll let go. Bad boy, why won't you listen?
She
Hugged the Rottweiler. Her tone is gentle as if coaxing a child, desperately shielding the dog with her body and saying, don't hit it.
It's
Just playing, it'll let go soon, will be good. Now, the belated culprit turned out to be none other than Schwed Yayan's long remembered first love, Lu Huichin. At this point, all the actors in this grand drama have finally made their appearance. I swung the iron rod backward and struck Lu Huichin's arm, which was firmly shielding the Rottweiler in my past life. It was her insistence on protecting that Rottweiler that caused me to be bitten without timely treatment, resulting in the crippling of my right hand. Now I must settle both old and new grudges in one
go.
Louis Chin cried out in pain as a red welt appeared on her arm, tears welling up in her eyes as she raised her voice to shout. What are you doing? Kennedy, you see I'm before she could finish. I struck her back with another blow from the rod, making her whole body
Jerk in pain.
I kicked her away with my leg and said impatiently, are those two glass balls on your head just for decoration? The person is about to die. Who cares about your damn life if you don't shut up? I'll smash every tooth in your mouth. Lou Hicken clutched her abdomen, glared at me with venom, and sobbed so hard her shoulders kept shaking. Working with the security guards, I took off my jacket to wrap around the Rottweiler's head. The moment it loosened its grip and struggle, everyone swiftly pinned it down firmly with a net. Schweden's arm was a bloody mess, trembling like a wreck, his mouth continuously muttering for help.
Seeing
him in such a pathetic state, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. In my previous life, I blocked Ron away for him, enduring the pain of having my arm bitten and even gouged my nails into its eyeball. Yet he didn't even have the courage to call for help, vanishing without a trace. If it weren't for the security guard noticing something amiss, I might have bled to death on the
spot.
The medical staff hurriedly escorted Schwed Yanan onto the ambulance. Just as I was about to follow, Lou Hicken blocked my path. With greened eyes, she shouted at me.
If
anything happens to my Will, I won't let you off the hook. I slapped her across the face in response. Too busy beating
the dog.
Forgot to teach you a lesson, you beast. Whether your dog father lives or dies is none of my damn business.
Did
you see that person just carried up? If anything happens to him? I lowered my voice, hissing through clenched teeth. You'll have to pay with your life, Lou Hicken, her face swollen and red from the slaps, sobbed incoherently without hesitation. I shut the ambulance door to keep her out of sight. The doctor behind me watched with fear and hesitation, hesitantly saying, Is she okay? I casually spread my hands and replied, She's fine. The dog's skin itched and, after getting beaten, it just needs to weigh a couple of times to feel better. The doctor fell silent, withdrawing his gaze. In horror, I indifferently looked at Schwed Yanan's bandaged fingers, sneering inwardly. That hand capable of painting million-dollar artworks would likely never hold a brush again. Truly, the wheel of justice turns. In his previous life, Shwedyanon's world-renowned work was titled The Sea Maiden. A young girl swallowed by the waves dressed in a white dress was the only vibrant hue in the cold, desolate blue. When the painting was exhibited, a reporter once asked about the source of the girl's inspiration, and Shwedyanon gazed at the figure in the painting with profound meaning. She is the vision of all the beauty projected in my heart. As he spoke these words, his fingers unconsciously tightened around the necklace on his chest. The girl inside the necklace smiled like a flower, her amber eyes identical to those of the maiden in the painting. It wasn't until the moment before death that I realized why Shweden, who didn't like the sea, had chosen the coastline as the backdrop. It was because Lu Huichin had died by throwing herself into the sea. He couldn't forget her, and he hated me to the core. On the last day of our honeymoon trip, he took me by surprise and pushed me into a pack of ravenous dogs. Through the wire mesh, Shwedyanon looked deranged. She was my only confidant. When no one else believed in me, she alone was convinced I could become a renowned painter admired by countless people, that I could make a name for myself. He watched as I was mauled by the fierce dog like tormenting dying prey. You clearly knew better than anyone how much I loved her. Why did you have to push her to her death? Only at this moment did I learn that Lu Huichin, who had crippled my right hand, was none other than Shweden's long-cherished first love. Back then, Yayanan was still in college. At his unnoticed art exhibition, Lu Huichin was the only one who stood before his paintings, expressing her admiration for him. From that moment on, every painting by Shwedyanon carried the shadow of Lu Huichin. With just a few words from her, she effortlessly overshadowed the nearly decade of devotion I had poured into him. How despicable. Had I known you loved her so much, I should have let her dog maul you to death. After all, it's her dog's life. Losing either one makes no difference. As Shwedyanon unlocked the front door, the sound of barking dogs grew closer behind me. Gritting my teeth, I cursed. He heard the sound and raised his hand with a sinister laugh, tossing a piece of meat reeking of blood to my feet. The ferocious dog nearby suddenly bared its fangs and sank them into my ankle. Su Yununing back. Then I never begged you to save me. As you wish. This time, I won't save you again. Shwedyanon was rushed into the emergency room on a gurney. The doctor looked at me with a grave expression and said solemnly, "Are you the patient's family member? The patient's condition is critical and requires immediate surgery. Could you please sign the consent form?" He extended the papers toward me, but I made no move to take them. If the surgery had been performed in time, this hand might still have been saved. Unfortunately, we couldn't reach your family that day. The doctor's troubled expression overlapped with the scene before me, and in my memory, Shwedyanon's indifferent face seemed to still be right in front of me. We're just ordinary classmates, so naturally, I'm not qualified to sign for you. Facing the doctor's anxious expression, I spread my hands with a bitter smile and said, "We're just ordinary classmates. Why don't we wait until I can contact his family before making a decision?" Shweden, when you've lost the use of this hand, will you still be able to love your former lover with the same ease? I'm looking forward to it. Yun Ning. As soon as I returned to the dorm, Jang Jinlin rushed over and carefully checked me from head to toe. "Are you hurt? I couldn't reach you all afternoon yesterday." The counselor mentioned a student was hospitalized after being bitten by a dog. Her eyes were slightly red, and only after confirming that I was unharmed did she finally relax. I was so worried I could
die.
I comfortingly patted her on the back. Don't worry, it was Shed Yen Nan who got bitten by the dog, not me. Hearing this, Zhang Jinlin suddenly looked up, scanning me from head to toe. With astonishment, her eyes filled with disbelief, as if I'd lost my mind.
No
wonder she was shocked. After all, too, the former me, Schweden, was my entire world. I loved him, protected him, and would rather suffer myself than let him endure the slightest grievance. Yet the cheaper and more boo, the less likely it is to be met with equal treatment.
He
turned a blind eye to my years of thoughtfulness, yet willingly knelt at another's flattery. In the end, I had priced myself too low. Yunning, are you all right? Zhang Jinlin looked at me and said softly, Did Yan bully you?
I
Told you he wasn't worth your attention. Always putting on that stinky face for
who knows who to see.
Serves him right to get bitten by a dog. Truly karma. Zhang Jinlin held me close, indignantly, listing Shwed Yan's wrongdoings.
I
listened quietly, unable to hold back the tears welling up in my eyes.
The
tears soaked my clothes, and she hugged me even tighter. Her curse is growing harsher. See, Shwed Yanan. Even after leaving home, someone was willing to stand up for me that night. My mom bombarded me with voice messages. In the chat, the blank chat page was filled with long and short voice messages, all marked with unplayed red
dots.
I knew very well that nothing good could come from what she had to say. After all, in her heart, Shwed Yanan, that model child from another family, carried far more weight than I ever did. When the security guard called me to the school gate, I spotted my mother in the crowd at first glance. She was wearing a striking red dress, bold and attention-grabbing. The moment our eyes met, she shouted my name at the top of her lungs and began cursing. You think you're grown now, daring to ignore my calls? Let me tell you, if you ever pull this again, you can crawl back to your deadbeat father and let him take care of your worthless hide. Her shrill voice drew many sidelong glances. I calmly met her gaze and sneered. What kind of nice words could you possibly have? Nothing but complaints that I didn't take care of Schweden, whining that I should be the one hospitalized, as if you'd ever wish me well. Su Yuning, how dare you speak to me like this? I sacrificed everything to get you into university. And this is the disgraceful behavior you've learned. Mom was clearly furious, her chest heaving violently. I shrugged indifferently and said, So, you came all the way to school just to corner and
scold me.
How pathetic. Don't you think that's a waste of a train ticket?
I
turned to leave, but my mother grabbed my arm and forcibly dragged me toward the school gate.
Stop right there.
You're responsible for Schweden's hospitalization, his food, clothing, and lodging until he's discharged. You'll stay at the hospital. You're not going anywhere. I pinched her arm and twisted hard, seizing the chance to put distance between us. When she yelped and let go, his arm was bitten by a dog. What does that have to do with me? Mother's face turned red with anger, her neck bulging, hysterical. How dare you say it's not your fault? He was bitten so badly by the dog. Yet you don't even have a scratch. You didn't even think to protect him. Isn't it just because you're jealous his painting skills are better than yours? Afraid he'd take your competition spot. She spoke with such conviction, completely ignoring the whispers around them. I can't even be bothered to expose your petty schemes, resorting to such lowly tactics. You're rotten to the core. I suddenly let out a cold laugh. Shwed Yanan's painting skills were entirely taught by me.
From
holding the brush to mastering the strokes. It was I who tirelessly practiced with him, encouraging him to grow step by step. At this point in my mother's words, I've become the villain who ruined his future. Mom, please get this straight. The only thing I'm not as good as him at. I lowered my voice, deliberately mimicking the sarcasm in her tone, is having a father who earns $1 million a year. Without a second glance at my mother's extremely unpleasant expression, I turned and walked away, completely ignoring the curses hurled at my back in my past life. The sacrifices I made for her were more than enough. My parents divorced when I was very young. Relatives always said I was the little burden that ruined my mother's later years. I think if Mom could marry someone she likes, she would forgive me. Then she would like me. I could tell she liked Uncle Shu from the moment they first met. So, even though Shwed was indifferent to me, I was eager to follow him around and do everything I could to please him. If getting closer to Shed Yanan can secure a good marriage for Mom and let her hold her head high among relatives, then it doesn't matter. If I suffer a little as long as Mom can be happy, no matter how difficult this path is, I'm willing to try because I love her. Unfortunately, she didn't love me as much as I had imagined. From childhood to adulthood, all my achievements were seen by her as either sheer luck or cunning schemes. All the honors I painstakingly built were nothing but worthless scraps of paper in her eyes. The paintings I meticulously created, the university I worked so hard to get into, the job I fought tooth and nail to secure, its luck, its mediocrity, its picking up crumbs from others' tables. She always looks down on me, belittles me, and insists that every choice I make is utterly reckless and irresponsible. My first award-winning painting was torn to shreds by her in public, scattering into a mess of paper scraps on the floor. When I chose art on my teacher's strong recommendation, she whipped my hands until they swelled, scolding me for lacking ambition. But when Shwed was forced to switch to art due to insufficient academic scores, she changed her tune, praising him as a prodigy whose paintings were full of spirit. Unlike my rigid artwork, I always thought her praise was a reward that required endless sweat and effort to earn. Yet, she never hesitated to lavish this reward upon Shwed. It wasn't that she didn't know how to love. It was just that the one she loved wasn't me. It's not that I did anything wrong, but rather that in this world, there are parents who simply don't love their children. After coming to terms with this reality, I stopped forcing myself to seek that meaningless love. I learned to let myself go. Back in the dormitory, I picked up my paintbrush. Again in my past life, to protect Yanan. My right hand was crippled, and I could no longer hold a brush when Yanan came to visit me. He held my hand with heartache in his eyes. Yunning, I will complete the paintings you left unfinished and fulfill the dreams you couldn't achieve. Dark circles shadowed his eyes as tears fell after just a few words, and he vowed, I promise in this lifetime, I will only love you alone. My heart will never change. At that time, I had been lying in the hospital bed for nearly 3 months, and the only person I could talk to from start to finish was Shwian. I believed his words without a doubt, and was so moved that I couldn't stop my tears from falling. Little did I know, his tears were not shed for me. That day, Louis Chin committed suicide, and the masterpiece I had poured countless efforts into creating was claimed by Shweden as his own, earning him the favor of our mentor. With a hollow confession, he made me devote everything unreservedly to nurture his talent, projecting my unfulfilled dreams onto him. On the day he became famous, I was happier than anyone, even though my name was never mentioned on his path to fame. I believe we are a community that thrives together. But unexpectedly, he only wanted to use this path to completely destroy me.
Fortunately, now,
I no longer need him to fulfill my wishes for me. The peaks I aspire to climb must be achieved by my own efforts. When the artwork was completed, I received a phone call from Shuyanon. He succinctly told me to go to the hospital, saying there was something to discuss in person. I knew exactly why he contacted me, because I had sued Luhi Chin and refused any settlement last time I was wronged and killed by her in this life. I decided to take it to the extreme, ensuring she died with infamy. As for Schwan, I was genuinely curious whether his love was truly more important than his hand. When I arrived at the hospital room, I was surprised to see Lu Hicken sitting by the bed, holding a bowl and feeding porridge to Shu Yanan. She blew on the spoonful of plain porridge, her movements gentle, the two of them intimate, as if they were a couple in a relationship. When he noticed me entering, Shu Yanan frowned unhappily and said coldly, "Yun Ning, why didn't you visit me during my hospitalization?" I glanced at Lu Hui Chin beside me, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Why should I come?
See you?
To watch you eyeing other men while still in a relationship?"
How disgusting.
My blatant sarcasm made Lu Hua Chin's eyes rain. She put down her bowl, her voice trembling. "Senior Su, I only stayed voluntarily because Janine had no one to care for him. If you can't stand me, I'll just leave." Her pitiful tone made me nauseous, and I snapped irritably, "Stop playing the saint when you're the root of all this. If you're really sorry, pay up sooner. How dare you shamelessly flaunt your presence?" Before the words had fully left my
Mouth.
a white blur flashed in my peripheral vision. I quickly stepped back 2 paces as a porcelain bowl of kanji shattered on the floor. Schweden's left hand trembled slightly as he spoke, each word deliberate. "Apologize."
I
crossed my arms and looked at Yanan as he pointed at my nose, furious beyond measure. "Su Yuning, I'm telling you to apologize to Hu Chin. She was kind enough to stay and take care of me."
Who
gave you the right to vent your anger on her?" He pulled Lu Hicken into his embrace, his eyes filled with loathing. "Do you really think everyone is as foul-minded as you?" I looked down at the shattered porcelain fragments on the floor, slightly raising an eyebrow. "In my past life, before Louis' death, Shu Yanan always kept his distance from me. I had always thought that I had hidden my deep affection so well that he remained completely unaware of it. By now, he must have long seen through my filthy thoughts. He was simply enjoying my complete obedience while blatantly pursuing the one he truly desired but hadn't yet won." Flexing my wrist, I walked to the bed under Shwed Yayan's furious glare. Lu Hi Chin, on the verge of tears, nestled against Shweden and whimpered softly, "Janine, maybe let's just forget it." Her plea made Shwed and look at me with even more intense hatred while I let out a light chuckle. I raised my hand directly and slapped him hard across the
face.
"Are you awake now? If you have something to say, say it. Don't waste my
time."
The slap left Shed Yayan's face swollen. He stared at me in disbelief, his lips trembling for a long moment,
before he finally managed to ask, "You
dare hit me?" I responded with another backhanded slap. 2 crisp, clean slaps completely stunned him impatiently.
I
retorted, "If you won't say it, I'll say it for you. If you don't want to pursue The matter of being bitten by a dog.
Fine.
I can't be bothered to meddle in your business. He mumbled incoherently. No, it's about the painting competition. Avoiding my gaze, he lowered his voice and said, Yuning, I can convince my father to let us marry, and I'll treat you as my dearest sister for life.
But
The artwork you created, I hope you can give it to Hicken. It's her only chance to study abroad. So, I burst into laughter while Xu Yanin recoiled in
fear.
afraid I might hit him again, taking credit for someone else's work. How clever of you. I leisurely picked up my bag, my tone dripping with disdain. For a_unto like you expect me to hand over my life's work?
You
Overestimate yourself far too much.
in
That instant, Schweden's eyes abruptly re-ened. He clenched the bed sheet tightly, the veins on the back of his hand bulging, and I couldn't even be bothered to spare him another glance. Trash should know its place, Schweden. Now it's your turn to be looked down upon. The eve of the competition, the school's water pipes were under repair, forcing me to move back home temporarily. When I entered, my mother gave me a cold glance and continued playing with her phone as if I didn't
exist.
For the 2 days I stayed at home, I went to the police station where the Rottweiler was captured. It is said that Xue Yan and ultimately chose to settle, while the handling of the Rottweiler as a banned breed has yet to be decided. The black dog, tightly chained, bared its teeth at me, drool continuously dripping from its muzzle. Through the bars, I could see dark red scars on the Rottweiler's fur. I asked the officer in charge of it, Did you beat it during this time? It has unhealed wounds on its body. The police officer repeatedly waved his hands and said, It's a mad dog that bites people. We didn't even dare to enter the cage to feed it, let alone beat it.
In my
previous life, when I heard that Louis Qing committed suicide for her dog, I had doubts in my heart. If she truly loved Rottweilers to the point of disregarding her own life, she wouldn't have recklessly let them roam freely in the city. After her death, I privately investigated the group that abused and killed her beloved dog. The reason they chose to beat the dog to death wasn't just out of anger towards aggressive dogs biting people. A larger part of it was venting their rage at Lu Hicken herself. She had once posed as a pet influencer online, profiting off her pet's illnesses by playing the victim for money. The reason she likely chose suicide was that after I exposed the Rottweiler biting incident, her persona as a dog lover collapsed, subjecting her to endless insults from fans and fraud lawsuits. To escape debt and unable to face the devastation of an account that had amassed millions of followers, they chose suicide. Looking at the Rottweiler before me, I opened a can of meat, poured it into a bowl, and handed it to the dog. It growled, nearly knocking over the food, eating quickly and greedily, its eyes fixed on me while continuously growling. This dog raised by Lu Huichin has been ruined.
it
Cannot integrate into human society, and the only fate awaiting it is euthanasia. Detestable and pitiful, and this hidden landmine will be my move to destroy Lu Hicken. Just as I was about to leave home for the competition, I ran into Xu Yan at the door again. His cheeks were swollen and red as he pressed the elevator button for me. Seeing me keep my distance, a bitter smile appeared at the corner of his lips. Yunning, I've always seen you as a younger sister.
I
Don't want things to end up where we can't even be friends. I didn't respond. As the elevator door slowly opened,
he
let out a soft sigh. Ning, why can't you just be obedient? The all too familiar words made me freeze for a moment before I was abruptly shoved into the elevator. My body slammed heavily against the elevator compartment as Shwed and forcefully gripped my neck, hissing in a low voice close behind me.
Close the door.
In the midst of excruciating pain, I lifted my head and saw my mother, standing at the stairwell, pressing the door close button between the elevator
Doors.
A half-finger-thick iron rod was wedged, accompanied by a screeching friction sound. The elevator shook violently and got stuck midair. The old elevator was prone to malfunctions even under normal circumstances, and now it was completely immobilized. Meanwhile, Shweden and tightly gripped my neck to prevent me from calling for help.
In my
memory, he had once said something
similar to me.
On the night of his painting exhibition, I specially reserved a lavish banquet for him and bought the watch he had long desired. When I placed the watch before his eyes, emotions flickered in his gaze as he
sighed softly.
Yunning, if only you could be obedient and stop yearning for things that don't belong to you.
His
words were gentle as he raised his hand to caress my face, speaking with a tenderness I had never heard before. Perhaps I should be grateful to you. Grateful for what? Grateful that I devoted everything to you, helping you achieve your world-renowned fame as a painter. Grateful that I crippled my right hand for you, eliminating a competitor. Am I still grateful for the decades I spent by your side without asking for anything in return? I kicked him with all my might between the legs, and Shwed and contorted in pain, unable to hold back a howl. From above came my mother's panic cry. Yen, are you okay? Should I call for help? My body acted as if it were about to fall apart. I grabbed Shu Yanin by the head and slammed it hard against the elevator
door.
Amid the loud crash, Shuyan's screams grew even more agonized while I pressed the emergency button inside the elevator. After explaining the building to the receptionist, the sound of my mother pounding on the elevator door became increasingly frantic as she repeatedly called out Nin's name. Pressing my hand against Shed Yanin's neck, I responded coldly, "Call for help. Now, if you don't want him to die."
Mom's
cries stopped amid a string of unspeakable curses. Her voice completely vanished in the stairwell. Time ticked by, and just as it seemed we'd be too late, the elevator door was pried open by construction workers. With blood still on my fingers, I expressionlessly grabbed the outstretched hand of a worker and climbed out of the elevator. As for Shwedyanon, whether he lives or dies concerns my mother more than me. Stumbling out of the residential area, I abruptly saw a pink car parked right in front of me. The car window rolled down, and Jang Jinlin, looking at my panting self, made a swift decision.
Get
in the car. Amid the deafening roar of rock music, Jang Jinlin drove like lightning, sparking off the wheels, speeding me all the way to the school
gate.
By the time I entered the competition venue, Lu Huichin was already on stage presenting her painting. The artwork in her hands was nearly an exact replica of mine.
At the
heart of the eerie and distorted Guanyin, a mud-smeared flower bloomed. The crimson flower struggles to grow in the rain, destined to become the salvation cradled in Guanin's palm. The reason for painting this was to create an outlet for the pressure imposed by family. In my heart, my mother is a deity, a shelter from the storm where I seek refuge, and perhaps I can become the flower blooming in her palm.
Now,
this painting may have taken on a new interpretation. I walked straight onto the stage while Lu Huichin was eloquently explaining how the painting depicted the burning passion between a man and a woman. I kicked the frame to pieces. Not only did you disgust people with this plagiarized trash, but you
also sent your boyfriend to block my
way, grabbing her by the collar.
I
forced her to watch as I trampled her masterpiece underfoot amidst her screams. I can't tell. You may not have much class in raising dogs, but you're quite skilled at training them. I abruptly pushed her aside and directly displayed my painting, causing the judges to audibly gasp at the sight. The composition and color tones of the two paintings were identical, making it purely a comparison of technique. The superior one was immediately obvious. There was no need to compare which painting came first. Who the plagiarist was could be seen at a glance. Lu Hui, chin with tears streaming down her face, sobbed. Senior, I don't know why you're slandering me, but every stroke of this painting was drawn by my own hand. Before she could finish, the judge interrupted. Miss Liu, if you didn't plagiarize, please present the draft sketches from the design phase. Lu Hua's face quickly flushed red as she stammered in protest. I wasn't filming at the time, and I never imagined someone would make such baseless accusations. If anyone copied, it should be her copying me. Her guilty tone made the judges frown, and I immediately presented my design sketches from half a year ago. The room fell silent. The judges' gazes at Lu Huichin were now unmistakably disdainful. As one remarked coldly, plagiarism is strictly prohibited in the competition. As a creator, plagiarism itself is an utterly shameless act. Even after being exposed, you still refuse to admit it. Classmate. Lu, don't you feel ashamed? Lu Hicken couldn't stay any longer, wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. She ran off the stage in tears, and the plagiarized painting she created was torn into shreds by me, mixed into the trash. The judge looked straight into my eyes and said, You may begin presenting your work now. The stage I once missed now finally has a place for me. As for Lu Huichin, being publicly exposed for plagiarism was enough to shatter her pride. To plagiarize right in front of the original creator, her audacity is truly beyond belief. With her level of drawing skills, even plagiarism might not get her selected. How shameless of her. The competition even made it to trending searches. Utterly embarrassing. Our school's reputation. Online, the unanimous outcry was against her, and her reputation among teachers and students plummeted to rock bottom. I deliberately took screenshots of the most scathing comments from the trending topics and sent them to Sweden, and caption, Your dear friend has been utterly ruined because of you. Sweden didn't reply, but I knew he saw them. I heard that Mom came looking for me downstairs at the dormitory. Her only purpose in coming was to vent her anger. Her hair was greasy and her clothes were stained with rice grains and vegetable leaves. Her disheveled appearance drew many sidelong glances. When I appeared, she grabbed my clothes forcefully and swung her arm to slap me across the face. You've ruined half my life, making me unable to hold my head up high, and even sabotaged my chance at a good marriage. Why didn't you just die in the womb, you jinx? I grabbed her raised hand, the stench of raw meat hitting me so hard it made me nauseous. Seeing that, I dared to fight back. Her eyes grew even redder as she screamed hilariously. I've slaved and suffered to raise you, endured so much hardship, only to end up with an ungrateful wretch like you, humiliating me in my old age. She grabbed my clothes, tears rolling from the corners of her eyes, her words trembling with sobs. I looked at her expressionlessly and asked in return, Did Uncle Shu abuse you? My mother's words choked in her throat, her fingers digging into my flesh as if she wished to pierce through. It wasn't hard to guess who had splattered her entire body with food. I rolled my eyes and snapped,
irritably.
I told you long ago that the SCHW family is heartless and ungrateful, but you wouldn't listen no matter what. Who can you blame now? I tapped on my phone screen, sending an address to Mom's WeChat along with some compromising photos of Uncle Shu and a young woman. Do you really think a man of his status would willingly marry you? At best, he's just using you as a free mate. You've obeyed Schwan and everything, but has he ever even called you Mom? Mom clutched her phone tightly, her lips trembling as she opened each image, her face visibly turning deathly
Pale.
The Shu family never respected you in the first place. Uncle Shu used you to raise his son. And in Shu Yan's eyes, you're even lower than a maid. You're desperately dreaming of marrying into wealth, but in the end, you'll just become a laughingstock for everyone. You blame me for ruining the rest of your life, calling me a jinx.
I
Pried open her fingers, gripping my arm, a hint of mockery curling at the corner of my lips. I'll return these words to you exactly as they are, with a mother who harbors extreme jealousy and hatred toward her own daughter. My first half of life has been nothing but wandering and instability. I withdrew my hand and cast a final cold glance at my mother. The address is a property Uncle Schweb bought for his mistress. If you want to catch them in the act, you'd better time
it right.
That old fox isn't easy to
fool.
Having said this much, I left it at that. The choice of how to proceed would be her own to make. In my past
life,
I personally led her to expose Uncle Shu's true nature, only to be blamed and resented by her. This time I won't repeat the same mistake. This caused quite a stir. Mom took a knife and slashed the face of Uncle SCHW mistress, making headlines as media outlets scrambled to report the shocking news. His embezzlement of company funds to support his mistress led to a complete fallout with his late wife's family, who publicly severed ties with him. The company's stock suffered severe losses and its reputation plummeted. His son Shwed Yanan was also exposed for cheating, denounced as being cut from the same cloth. I fanned the flames by presenting myself as a victim, exposing the Schwa father and son's pattern of abandonment after seduction, thereby thrusting a certain heavyweight figure into the spotlight. Lu Hui-chin, who was exposed in her past life for animal abuse, is now fraudulently flaunting a pet-loving persona, as she was labeled, with negative tags like homewrecker and plagiarist. The more accusations piled up, the more they incited public outrage, and Shu Yanan couldn't escape unscathed either. The only way he could free himself from the mud was to cut off Lu Hui-chin and beg me. This was the opportunity one had been waiting for. Yunning Shwed and stood guard at the school gate, looking haggard. He finally couldn't laugh anymore.
I
applied spices to my fingertips, curling the corners of my lips. Figured it out. Shwed and smiled bitterly and nodded. He wrapped his arm around my waist and kissed my forehead as gently as in our past life. Whenever he tries to please me, he does this both as a lover and as the brother who grew up with me.
I
tapped on my phone screen and said, I can clarify the rumors, claiming it was all a misunderstanding before, and help you take over Uncle SCHW. Yan's eyes lit up as he held me tighter, eagerly leaning in to kiss my lips.
I
pressed a hand against his chest, my smile not reaching my eyes. But there's a condition. You must personally expose Lu Hua's hypocrisy and get rid of that damn dog of hers. I stroked his wrist, shaking my head with fainted concern. Your hand could have naturally created masterpieces, but now it's been ruined. to the point where you can't even hold a
Brush.
Doesn't that pain you in? Stiffened? I decisively pushed him away. Without hesitation. Otherwise, forget.
It.
You can just rot to death with Lou.
Hicken.
Seeing me turn to leave. Shwed. And immediately grabbed my wrist and said through gritted teeth, I promise.
You.
I happily smiled again, sticking close to his side as before, and personally escorted him to Lu Hua's home. Just before entering, I handed Shu Yanan a bottle of high-end perfume. Tell her you're here to deliver a gift, so she won't suspect anything. Yan reluctantly reached out to take it, muttering, You've already prepared all the excuses, just waiting for me to fall into the trap, haven't you?
I didn't
answer, just smiled and waved at him, before turning to close the elevator
door.
As the door closed, I heard Lu Hua's tearful complaint. Brother, Shu, you finally come to see me.
Do you
know how much I've missed you? Inside the house, 2 barks of a dog were heard. I truly hope this grand gift will
satisfy them.
Looking at Lu Huan's account, the fierce dogs she keeps are far more numerous than just the Rottweiler. The spice I applied to my fingertips and the perfume I gifted to Lu Huichin were specially blended, harmless to humans, but capable of driving dogs into a frenzy. This cramped house, which restricts the freedom of the fierce dogs, will ultimately become their dead end. I hold grudges and never let
go.
How could I possibly spare them the grievances from my past life? I will repay them in full without missing a single one. Did you know Lu Huichin and Shu Yanan were hospitalized again after being bitten by dogs? They never learn. Zhang Jinlin scrolled through the campus group chat, clicking her tongue in amazement. Lu Huichin's entire face was disfigured by the bites, and Shu Yanan is even worse off. Whether he can be saved is still in question. Rumor has it Lu Huichin abused animals in private. The whole internet is calling it karma. Serves her right. I stirred my milk tea, chuckling lightly as I listened to her shouting, and nodded in agreement.
What goes around comes around.
When Lu Huichin was sued in court, I made a special trip to observe the verdict. Her entire face was bitten open, the wounds gaping and horrifying to behold through the bandages. Her amber eyes had lost all the charm of the sea maiden in the painting from her past life. When she spotted me in the spectator seats, she ignored all restraint and lunged forward, shrieking, It's you.
It was
you. You underscore on her who ruined me, wasn't it? I'll drag you down with me.
She didn't
make it 2 steps before the baifs pinned her to the ground, her struggling, causing the bandages on her face to seep with fresh blood in his memory. His prematurely deceased first love's life carried far more weight than mine as his newlywed wife. You got your face mauled by the dog you raised yourself.
What
does that have to do with me? I narrowed my eyes slightly, smiling radiantly. Just a harmless little prank from your
pet.
Why take it so seriously? Amid Lu Hua's incoherent wails of grief, I rose and left the table. Shed Yan and ultimately didn't die in his sick bed. Yet he never managed to leave the hospital either. That patient keeps losing control and screaming at the slightest provocation, terrified by every little sound. Communication is completely impossible. The nurse shook her head helplessly and led me into the psychiatric ward. Shwed and huddled in the corner, muttering indistinct words to himself. His cheeks were torn beyond recognition, and not a single patch of skin remained intact on his arms, making him resemble a monster from a horror
movie.
When he saw me, his pupils contracted slightly as he screamed uncontrollably, Don't come near me.
I didn't kill you.
I'm your husband.
It
Was the dog. The dog killed you.
he
Trembled all over, unable to utter a complete sentence.
It seemed that the
Memories of 2 lifetimes were mixed in. His emotions plunging him into the fear of being torn apart by dogs every moment. I shrugged inside to the nurse. Behind me, completely insane.
when I
Left the psychiatric hospital, I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. After winning the competition, my academic advisor saw potential in me and recommended me for studying abroad.
the
End point that Xu Yanin reached in his previous life. I will surpass it sooner and climb to even greater heights.
Zhang
Jean Lin and I made a promise. Once she passes the exam to study abroad for her master's degree, we'll travel together to see the landscapes we've longed for. Love without burden. I can live for myself.